Hey everyone, Avros here, back again with the Final Fantasy 12 game challenge and Final Fantasy 5. So in this episode we're going to go and finish off the rest of the tablet dungeons. So first one you can see here, we're dealing again with gargoyles. This one is actually the island shrine. I've left some of the gargoyle fights in just to show the progression as we go through here and what changes as we get to some of the higher level spells and skills. So you can see here we're using dual cast Faraga just to deal with them, and we'll see that change as we go through all the gargoyles. But this one here, as it says, is the island shrine. Kissed by wind, one tablet rests. So in we go for this one, and at the end of the dungeon here's the tablet, and the first one of the demons of the rift that showed back up and causes a group of little girls, which, considering that most of the group are female, I don't see how that's insulting, but here we go. So I've sped up this boss fight because it goes on for a while, but this is the Wendigo. So as it says there in the combat box, there's 4 of them, but that's not actually true. There's only actually one Wendigo, the other 3 are fakes, and whenever one of the fakes gets hit, it does actually trigger a very unfortunate effect, which we'll see here. Going to use Sildra, our new summon, which as you can see hits for about 3000 damage. It's very good damage out of Sildra, and that's what happens whenever you hit any of the duplicates, as they cast Frost, which is a big AoE attack that keeps hitting everybody. Krile gets lucky a few times there and actually blocks the Frost with her shield, and so that reduces the damage everyone's taking, but you'll see they're hitting for about 200, 300 every single time here, and being very annoying. And then also it sets the sap status, so doesn't work too well. What we're going to do here is try and keep the party alive, and we've got Avros set up as a blue mage chemist, so he can use his white wind there to heal everybody up, and same with Krile there with her white magic and Curaga, best heal spell in the game. That'll keep everyone alive. What we're actually trying to do here is hit the Wendigo, as it is weak to fire magic, with Faraga, and get a lot of damage in on that, as well as use Sildra, as it is such a high damage summon. But what I've actually been trying to do here, and I accidentally did the first mix incorrectly at the start of the fight here, is with Avros to use the mix skill from the chemist, and use that to apply a buff to a few other people in the party, to get them all into a position where we're not going to worry about that frost anymore at all. So just keeping the party healed up here, and probably should have just not bothered attacking until I had this set up, but we're going to go ahead and use a Phoenix Down and a potion to cast Reincarnate, and that will bring Krile back with full health, seeing as Avros doesn't have access to Arise like she does. And then we're going to go ahead and actually mix it correctly this time, do another Reincarnate, and try and get everyone up. Use Arise there with Krile, revives somebody with maximum HP, unlike life, get them all back up. And gonna go with a much smarter idea here and actually defend with everybody until we get back to Avros, and then we'll use the Phoenix Down and the Antidote to put Resist Ice up on Lena there, which is what we're actually trying to do. And we're going to try and use Odin here to work out which one's the real one, and it turns out Gungnir can actually hit the wrong one, and that's a bit of a problem. So, as you would have seen there, or if you didn't, you'll see it in a few seconds again, anyone with that Resist Ice ability actually starts absorbing ice magic, so Phoenix Down Antidote is the mix there for Resist Ice, and once they start absorbing any ice magic, you'll notice that they actually get healed by it. The trick with the Wendigo here, I know I said 3 of them are illusions, is that which one's the real one keeps moving, and that's why this fight is actually kind of a pain, because what happens is that every few rounds, the one that is the real Wendigo, as you can see it's not that bottom left one anymore, will actually move to a different spot. And so using something like Rapid Fire, which hits at random, but hits a lot of times is very strong, or stuff like Sildra that hits for an AoE, means that you'll definitely hit the one that is the one you're wanting to hit, but you'll definitely take those frost responses back. So abusing the Chemist's Resist Ice to keep your party healed up just allows you to basically spam these attacks and have everyone just get healed by the negative of the frost spell being cast. So you'll see there Kryl, Lena, and Avros all have that up. They're not taking any damage at all. Pharos, we haven't had a chance to get it up yet, but as the boss does have a lot of HP, we're just trying to get through this as quickly as possible, and so avoid stuff like that as well, because that drains MP, the Mind Blast skill there, and try and keep as many people alive here as we can. So, something to note for the end of this fight, with everyone being freelancers currently, they have access to any passive abilities in a class they mastered, or any passive abilities from a class that they have learnt. So, for example, everyone here, especially Avros, also has the learning skill from Blue Magic, as we mastered that job with everybody, and so they will actually all be able to possibly learn Mind Blast, which is another Blue Magic spell, whenever that happens to occur. So you'll actually notice here at the end of this, the rest of them will disappear now that the Wendigo is actually dead once they've finished doing their retaliations, and we learn Mind Blast, and that's another tablet seized. And each of the tablets actually unlocks an additional thing. So the first one unlocked Bahamut, which we're going to go and do later. This one actually, when you get it, opens up the entrance to that tower there, sitting in the desert. You might be wondering where it is. That's actually at the entrance to Crescent Island, where the entrance underground used to be. And it's called the Fork Tower, so we now have access to the Fork Tower, where the strongest white and black magics are stored. And as it says, twin houses are the strongest magic Fork Tower. 2 houses are not traversed and spells removed as 1. Both shall be destroyed, and the tower rent asunder. So basically, we have to get both spells at the same time in the Fork Tower here. So when we come in, we notice that there's 2 entrances, and they basically mentioned again that the towers will explode if we don't take both spells at the same time, so now we have to split the party up. So Avros is going to get sent to the left, because it does actually ask us to make a decision there, and then it's going to go through each party member and ask us to make this decision. So where will Lena go? We're going to send her off into the right-hand side tower, and we'll get to which each tower is and what its gimmick is in a second, once we've decided with everybody. So we're going to send Pharos off to the left, and at this point you might think, well, you're going to send Kryl off to the right as well, aren't you? And nope. Kryl's going to go to the left tower as well. We're going to have Lena solo her tower on her own. We've set her up early on through the game to make sure that this is actually possible. So the left-hand side tower that's being traversed now by Avros, Pharos, and Kryl is actually a magic-based tower. So you can't actually use physical attacks in here without some level of backlash from the enemies. And actually had quite a smooth climb up through the tower here. Only a couple of random encounters. Everything in here is reliant on doing magic damage. Physical damage doesn't do much at all. And spoilers, there is a boss at the end of this tower, and it does something very annoying if you try and use physical attacks, but we'll get to that when we get to it. And just getting our way through this tower here, dealing with all these magic-based enemies and taking them out. Eraga there from the blue magic, a very strong spell, and we make it to the top, and it actually sends us over to do the other tower, so both spells can be taken at the same time. So, Lena here, we're going to set her up with the Brave Blade and the Blood Sword, so that while she's on her way through here with rapid fire, she can keep her health topped up, as she doesn't have access to any real healing magics, as well as the fact that magic is not allowed in this tower. This is the physical side tower, so that's the gimmick of this place. One side relies more on magic-based attacks, the other side on physical, and the bosses at the top of each tower, because there is one at each, punish use of the other type of attack, shall we say, or the other type of skill. So Lena's going to get to the top of the tower here, and we're going to go ahead and fight against the boss. So Lena yells out from her tower to the other one, take the spell exactly as we do, and Avros is like, yep, got it. The actual game mechanics don't exactly work that way, but we see Lena here go in her fight against the Minotaur. So one of the items we picked up on the way through the tower in this one is a little something called the Defender. It's a knight sword that has a specific use. There's a few items, weapons mostly, as you go through the game, that when you have them, you can use them and they will do a specific effect when they're used. I completely forgot as I was doing this that they have to be equipped to be used, so I equipped the Defender there and used it to cast a spell. So the spell animation there, it doesn't really tell you exactly what it was, but that animation is the animation for the spell from White Magic, Protect, that reduces the physical damage you take. So seeing as this is the physical damage tower, the Minotaur boss here only really has physical attacks, so putting that Protect up makes it so that Lena takes very little damage, and will have enough HP left over from any attacks to heal herself up with a blood sword. This was actually my second attempt at this boss, and my second attempt at the tower. I do have the footage of my failed attempt. It's not pretty. I didn't set up for this fight very well. I didn't use the protect at all, and completely forgot to clip the blood sword, which was a massive mistake. In the end, I ended up losing to the Minotaur, didn't even make it to the second boss fight. Here I get smart and go, oh wait, I should switch that out for the Brave Blade because I've already got the protect up. You're an idiot. You'll see I'm hitting there for the 1000 damage now with the Brave Blade, a much higher amount of damage there to try and deal with the boss, and that's it. Minotaur's dealt with. He's going to try and cast the ultimate spell at the top of this tower, Holy, and doesn't have enough mana to actually execute the spell. So fight's over. You don't actually have to worry about dodging the Holy spell, but you do need to be prepared for this. Soloing the tower, not necessarily the best option all the time, and we're going to jump over the Magic Tower. So, as you can probably guess from the rest of the gimmick of the Magic Tower, this boss can only have magic used against him. Blue, red, white, black, summons, any of that's fine. One thing that's really weird about Omniscient here is that if you use a physical ability on him at all, unlike the Minotaur that just hits you really hard whenever you use magic, he actually uses the spell Return and resets the entire fight back to the very beginning. Restores your health and mana and everything, but says, nope, any damage you've dealt to me, anything you've done, reset it, start over, do the fight correctly this time, don't use any physical attacks. So you'd be thinking, well, that's not so bad, you just use magic. And you might think, well, okay, what sort of magics should we be looking at using? And you might think, oh, Geomancer, they're a magic caster class, we can use the Gaia ability and use some of the arena abilities against him. Nope, that counts as a physical attack and he'll reset the encounter. You'll notice I'm not really talking too much about this fight. There's not really much to say. Everyone's wearing reflect rings, so any spells he casts on us will get reflected back and deal damage to him, basically neutering the entire fight. The only spell that will go through the reflect rings is Flare, which he only casts at the very end of the encounter like he just did there, and it hits really hard, but we've got enough HP on Avros being a blue mage that he can tank the Flare, and we get the spell as well. The other thing to keep in mind with that fight is to use stuff like Mighty Guard, which is a great blue magic spell, or stuff like Shell, which reduces the magic damage that you take, and that will save you from death during the fight against Omniscient. The only other strategy that is worth mentioning that you can use against him is if you are playing on an emulator or you've got more than enough time on your hands, you can actually fight him with physical characters by waiting for him to cast enough spells against you with reflect rings by doing nothing until he runs out of mana, so when he casts Return, the fight doesn't restart because he doesn't have enough mana to do it, and then just wail on him. I don't understand why you would bother. It sounds like an incredibly boring way of fighting him unless you're fighting under certain restrictions, but it is an option there. The next section here, the tower disappears and the entrance back into this underground area comes back, and we go under there to find Sid and Mid, and Sid offers to upgrade the airship so that it can travel underwater. And a bit of a touching cutscene here between Mid and Kryle, where Mid admits that Sid realizes that his meddling with the crystals could be responsible for the world being on the state it's in, and Kryle says, well, you know, it's not entirely his fault, and Mid says, yeah, I'm sure he knows that, but he feels better to be doing something to actually, you know, save the world. And Sid here himself even admits it. He's no good at fighting, all he can do is modify machinery, so he's given us our submarine, and now we can go and find our next tablet. One of the parts of the combined books mythos about where the tablets are all located, or where all these shrines are, is that one was deep underwater, so we're not going to go there actually just yet. We're going to take a quick detour and go underwater here, and you might notice this tower here looks vaguely similar to some of the things we encountered during the very early part of the game when we were in Avros' world to start with. That is 100% accurate in that this tower is actually Well's tower. The tower the water crystal was in is now sunk and underwater now that the worlds have re-emerged. What's actually really interesting about this is that you might have noticed, or maybe not, it's a thing that if you're aware that it's going to happen, you can see it, but in the Walls Tower, when we first grabbed all the fragments of crystal, there was one that we couldn't get to at all. that is now located in this underwater tower. So when you first enter, you'll notice the layout is practically the same as it was when you came through Wall's Tower, except we're starting at the top and working our way downward. Avros does mention at the start that he'll be able to hold his breath for 7 minutes. All the vines and holes and everything work exactly the same there, as I've demonstrated. If you can't get through this dungeon in the 7 minutes, your party basically just drowns, and that's it. The game restarts. All the enemies in here are kind of interesting. They're all these weird dark silhouettes because you're trapped in this underwater tower where you can't really tell what they are, but they still have similar sort of strengths and weaknesses to what they would have had previously. And eventually you just fight your way through a insane amount. Like, there's the fire trees there, a chimera there on the left. They're very similar to what they were above ground, and basically you just have to deal with them and fight your way through. And eventually you'll make it to the first floor and find this crystal shard. And as it says, it's taken the first 2 acts, but now the crystal shard is here. I shall allow you to take it again, turn back or be gone. And if you say no, you run into this encounter here with Gogo. As he says, his name is Gogo, Mimic Extraordinaire. The basis, no, the very soul of mimicry, is the ability to aptly imitate someone no matter the situation. Thus, he'll imitate our every move. When you attack, he'll attack. When you cast a spell, he'll cast a spell. If you could imitate me, you'd certainly win. More likely, it will be curtains for you. This is a weird boss fight. It's technically possible to beat Gogo. It takes a lot of leveling. Like, my characters are pretty broken with the job setups they've got at the moment, but there's really no point to actually fight Gogo. You'll notice I'm not actually doing anything in this encounter at all. To actually beat him, you need to be able to do a lot of damage very quickly, as after a few rounds of you actually attacking him and him attacking you back, if you're not dead, he will then just basically resort to no longer mimicking your attacks, because if you attack, he will do the same attack back. Same with spells, same with anything, he will copy you exactly what the commands you put in. If you beat him up a few rounds and don't die, he just resorts to no longer mimicking you, casting a bunch of really powerful spells, and just wiping your party out. The trick to this encounter, if you want to go this route, is to do what I'm doing. Do nothing. He will only ever mimic you. So if you do nothing, he'll do nothing, which means you'll do nothing, imitating him doing nothing, and eventually he will do this, and admit you're a perfect mimic as well. He's doing nothing, so you did nothing. And, you know, we're copying ourselves round and round in circles. So we're perfectly doing nothing perfectly. And we feel the essence of mimicry, so he gives us our blessing to continue on the true path of imitation, and just goes away, basically, banishes himself, and ends the encounter, and we're able to pick up the last crystal, which contains the job, as you might have expected, for Mime. Interesting little fact about famed mimic Gogo. There's a character in Final Fantasy VI called Gogo, who is also a mimic, and everyone thinks, well, he must be the same character. It's never been a confirmed thing from Square Enix or anything like that, but it's mildly interesting. Just a quick note on the job Mimic. We are actually going to use that job. I've left some of this footage in of the climb back out of the tower to cover off what we're going to use the Mimic for. So what's really interesting about Mimic is its job actually works as a sort of freelancer, except that it doesn't have to use the attack command. It has access to pick any command and any skill from any job. So you get 3 slots to use instead of attack, and 3 things to pick from. It still has to keep that 4th slot for items, because if they turned off items, you could be completely just broken out of the game by not being able to revive people, use potions or whatever. So it still gives you access to items, but it gives you the other 3 command slots as do whatever you want with them. So Mimic becomes this really powerful class for casters. So you'll see Kryle and Faris in this gargoyle fight are now both Mimics, which gives them access to be utterly, completely busted at this point. I don't think we do too much with them in this encounter against the gargoyles, except now Kryle has access to dual cast, time, and white magic, and Faris has access to dual cast, black, and summon magic, essentially making both of them incredibly powerful at one specific thing. So dual cast works best when you have another magic class on that character, as it allows them access to cast any spell from that spell list twice, as red magic only goes up to level 3. So by having dual cast from the red mage, Faris can cast up to level 3 white magic, all black magic, and all summons, and Kryle now can cast all white, all time magic, and black up to level 3. So they are basically the ultimate casters at this point. And at the end of this one, which is the Underwater Shrine, we're coming up against our next boss fight. A quick note, there's a flag that can be set in Final Fantasy V that makes it so that black and other instant death spells don't affect bosses or any other character called Heavy. These bosses don't have that flag. Basically, Odin can be summoned once to use Zantetsuken, and that's it. Fight's over, easiest boss fight in the game, that's it. We get the next tablet. It also has some writing on the back and gives us the ultimate time magic Meteor. So now we've got the 3 most damaging spells for each of those skill sets, but we don't have the ultimate summon yet. As I mentioned before, we're going to go and fight Bahamut. He is the ultimate summon as far as summon magic goes. He's incredibly mana expensive, so if you want to really get the most out of Bahamut, especially if you're going to be dual casting like we are, Gold Hairpin, which is a accessory item, is the best way to go about it, as that does actually half the cost of all spells that you cast. So Krell's best damaging spell she has access to other than Holy right now is Meteor. As you can see there, does a lot of damage, and we've gone from spamming Firaga to spamming Sildra to spamming Meteor or Flare or Holy, which are both single target spells, and that's it. We've dealt with all the gargoyles, and we're on to the final tablet. This final tablet here in the behind the waterfall is where this one's located, is the last dungeon, and we got the 4th tablet, and no demon from the rift showed up. Actually shows up after we grab the tablet as sort of a fake out, and says that once Exdeath has the power of the void, he won't let us interfere any longer, only for this thing to show up from behind the waterfall and just annihilate the demon before it has a chance to do anything. And as it says there, that is Leviathan. So our next boss fight in this area is actually optional. Leviathan is another summon, and says that if we're strong enough to defeat him, that we can use him in battle. So Leviathan is kind of an interesting fight. He does like to use a lot of annoying attacks, and some sap abilities and stuff like that, so Avros actually has sap on him right now. What's really dumb is, now that we've got Flare and Holy, we have access to Flare and Holy Spellblade on Lena, which do insane amounts of damage, and also, at this point, we have enough MP to use the time magic spell Quick, so Krell's actually going to use Quick twice there, and what Quick does is it gives you 2 turns immediately in a row right now. If you use Quick with dual cast, not really worth doing double Quick. I actually kind of messed up my inputs on that one. You can use Quick on your first cast of dual cast, and then cast another spell to deal damage, and then with the 2 turns of Fortitude by Quick, dual cast with both those to immediately cast 2 more spells, essentially giving yourself 6 casts in a row, with Quick as the first one, and then 1 spell after that, and then each of the Quick rounds casting 2 additional spells. So for example, 5 Meteors in a row by using Quick and then Meteor 5 times, or Flare 5 times in a row, or Holy 5 times in a row, or 5 summons in a row. So if you had Bahamut, you could summon Bahamut 5 times in a row, or Sildra 5 times in a row. It gets incredibly broken, and this is the benefit of actually mastering the red magic job to get dual cast, and mastering time magic to have access to Quick, and making really powerful casters. Like I said, we've really broken the game at this point with these job setups. The Spellblade dual wield rapid fire on Lena is incredibly powerful, especially now with Flare Spellblade, and the setups on both Krell and Faris, they have access to basically every type of magic on both those characters, as well as dual cast from Red Mage. Avros is kind of not the strongest member of this party in some respects, but is incredibly powerful in others, in that, along with the mix ability from the Chemist and Blue Magic, he just is incredibly powerful as a healer and as a support unit, as well as dealing decent damage with Blue Magic. Not much to talk about in that fight. Leviathan's not weak against anything. It's the strongest and only water-based summon in the game, but water's the only type of magic that has no boosting weapon, so it's probably not the best summon in the game. Sildra with a weapon that boosts air magic is actually stronger, and Bahamut, being the strongest summon in the game, is significantly stronger than Leviathan for a much higher mana cost. So now that we've beaten up everything, we've gotten all 4 of the tablets, we've unlocked all 12 of the legendary weapons, which I didn't show off the rest of them when I grabbed them, but I do have all of them now in my inventory and using them on different characters. Now that we've done all of that and we've done everything else there is to do, it's time to fight Bahamut. So Bahamut's an interesting fight. He does a lot of damage. Using blue magic, something like Mighty Guard or Shell and Protect from a White Mage does definitely make a big difference for actually beating Bahamut because of how much damage you can put out. Doing stuff like what we're doing here with Quick, and then, like I said before, doing 5 Meteors in a row. So you'll see that was Quick and Meteor 1 from Kryle. Now she gets her 2 turns in a row from Quick, and she's going to just go ahead and cast Holy for these two. And you'll notice the difference in damage output here from Holy. 5,000 damage from a single cast of Holy is so much damage. And then, again, dual cast, and 2 more Holies here. So Bahamut puts out a lot of damage by using stuff like Mega Flare, which is his unique ability. It's been Bahamut's unique ability in a lot of the games that he's in as a summon or anything like that. And yeah, we're going to try and beat him before he has a chance to do too much of that. So here we go with a Quick and then Sildra. And just to give you an idea of how much damage Sildra does with one of those air magic boosting weapons, here goes Faris hitting for 3,300. So, and then we can just go ahead and do double dual cast, double Sildra. And that's pretty much all there is to the Bahamut fight with how we're set up, and for a lot of fights going forward, we're going to try and restrict how many turns the enemies have by our use of Quick and Dual Cast as much as possible, as well as using our accessories. Pretty much everyone on the party has access to Hermes Shoes at this point, which is an accessory that gives you instant haste at the start of combat. We also have access to stuff like Reflect Ring, so we can't be affected by magic. Pretty much at this point, with all of the legendary weapons and the gear we've acquired through every dungeon we've had, our party is insanely powerful, and there's not too much other than the final boss of the game and a couple of optional super bosses, which I did take on my way through, that can actually stand in our way. So, having completed all the temples and got all the tablets, all the legendary weapons, and acquired the Summon Bahamut, there's not too much left to do. Only going to be a couple episodes left, I think, of this once I have them all edited, as we go and take on Exdeath and save the world. So thank you for watching, and catch you in the next episode.